Stephanie Lui-Valentim is a marketing powerhouse who owns or co-owns not just one, but two companies, with the latest being Quell, a flourishing talent agency with a focus on Black, Indigenous, and persons of color and LGBTQS plus talent in the food, drink, and lifestyle industry. Stephanie talks about leaving corporate life, what Quell represents, and her and her brother Trevor's mission to permanently highlight and embolden diversity across the landscape and quote-unquote break down current systemic inequities and barriers that exclude diverse and phenomenal individuals from opportunities in their professions. It's indeed not your traditional agency. Would you say that you've always had the entrepreneurial spirit? And did you always have a feeling that it was going to focus on BIPOC as well as LGBTQ community?
No. I've been in corporate. I was in corporate for almost 20 years, just under 20 years. And I only left in November.
That makes two of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I only left in November, and I've known for about 15 years now that my goal was, before 40, was to start my own business. My own business was always going to be marketing, because I knew that, all of this would lead to something like that, was to have my own agency. And I did. So when I came out in November, I started my own marketing agency, and I still have it. But what I also realized was there was a need, right? And in any marketing, you're filling a gap and you're filling a need. I own Quell with my brother. And when we decided and had those discussions during the pandemic, we knew that we could marriage what we do and what we love and what we're passionate about to help others and to really make some kind of change that will matter. We know that D&I, or diversity inclusion, is at the top of a lot of business agenda, but we want to ensure that that's there for the right reasons, right? It's not tokenism work. It's not one-time initiatives, because at the end of the day, this is not a moment, it's a movement. And so how can we, as a strategic partner, help you and have these difficult conversations to ensure that this is something, D&I is something that needs to be ingrained into your DNA and the fabric of your DNA, right? It's got to be sustainable. And so
there's got to be momentum, and that momentum's got to be there forever.
Absolutely.
Not just for a moment.
Absolutely. And so those are the discussions that we're trying to have with them. So yes, thank you for, hiring, one of our talent, but this is not a one-time thing, right? How are you, and even if it's not us, how are you going to continue that and build that into your business?
Have you caught people off guard, because it was kind of like, okay, well, this was the mission for now, and we've got to jump on the bandwagon, because I hear that word a lot, bandwagon.
Yeah.
So have you caught anybody off guard, and what's been the response?
Yeah, they tell me about their policies and procedures already around the importance of diversity and inclusion. So we've had, I think, again, it's still pretty hot topic. And I think everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, I think many businesses are putting it as part of potentially their long-term strategy. I go back to thinking about what matters to me, and that's being purposeful. And my other company's called Intentful, right? Made up word, but it's intentful and to do with intention. And so this business comes out of that philosophy of that, right? Is let's be purposeful, intentful to make the change that we need. And there's definitely a huge gap in the industry. And, coupled with his expertise within the food and drink industry and hospitality, it just made sense. And so I do both. I have two agencies.
When did you identify those gaps? Like, what brought that on? Because it's relatively new.
Yeah.
Like, Quell started up in August.
Yes, it is very new, but we know that there has been systemic, racism and inequities, everywhere. But because between the two of us, we've been surrounded within the food and drink industry, and are, it's a very small community, right? Everybody, leans on each other. And I think with the pandemic and with, everything with social injustice that was happening this year, obviously everything has been heightened. And I think with that, lots of conversations happen. Obviously, my brother's in my bubble. And so, while we were on lockdown, we would get calls, right, from other chefs, from other, people within the industry, just we're sharing experiences. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Because, when this happened, it was all about how do we continue to listen? How do we continue to learn? How do we unlearn? Yeah. And so, we would have these conversations, and the same things kept on coming up, right? So we're not getting, we are all very educated. We have all recognized within the community. We're award winning. We do really great things, and our immediate community and our peers recognize that. But why am I not getting the work, right? That's what we kept on hearing. Why is it that I have to fight so hard just to be at the table? And so, then we kind of just sat there and we're like, well, why can't we do something about that? Like, what can we actually do? We really wanted, again, to listen, to learn, to unlearn, and really think about, if we were going to do it, why are we doing this? We need to make sure that we're very well connected and build the trust of our talent. Because at the end of the day, we're speaking on behalf of our talent, right? And I want to give them the proper justice in terms of how I'm talking about them and how I'm representing them. And so it's important for me to build these relationships with them.
Yes.
So and I've always been that kind of people person anyway. And, I've always had big teams under me on the corporate side. So this has kind of helped me to build these relationships with them and really help them grow.
What are your expectations going into 2021?
When we launched in October, I'm going to be honest, it has been like 97% so positive. We've had such amazing conversations. We connect with a lot of brands, we connect a lot of like previous partners, a lot of agencies, and it's just continually an endless support on what we're doing. And to me, that's refreshing. And I say 97% because it's not always going to be great, which is fine. Like, I mean, that's expected. We're also dealing with some issues that everyone's not going to agree or feel the same about. And
I was going to ask you about that too.
and we can talk about that. But I would have to say, it's been extremely positive. And
good.
I think, when September, October came around, a lot of people did probably feel like that. You still get that back to business feeling, right? Back to school, back to business feeling. And so because of that, we did have some good conversations. But then, second lockdown came down and things kind of changed again. How can we work in 2021 to actually be part of the plan? And so that is part of my, I guess, strategic way of saying, if you're thinking about your whole fiscal year, what are you actually doing to be more diverse and inclusive in terms of the faces that you're using and the voices that you're using? And then, of course, it's, well, I have the faces and voices for you. And so I've been fortunate enough to sit down with many clients to be part of that ideation process in terms of 2021 for them. Part of it is, here are my, as a brand, here are my strategic priorities. And I'm like, okay, great. Here is my talent. These are, what their skills and capabilities are, but they can also bring to light these types of, narratives or discussions that can, or synergy basically to, between you and what your strategic priorities are.
In terms of building your brand, you also implemented, which I think is a little unusual, especially for a startup. You have an ad hoc, from what I saw on your advisory board.
Yeah, we
right.
do.
So how did that come to be, and how did you make these selections?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that would be very interesting for entrepreneurs who wouldn't even think of that. But what about having an advisory board to hold you accountable to ensure that you're carrying out the mission?
I think when we started thinking about leaders that we needed, to help us along the way and to advise us along the way, we first thought about, okay, well, let's think about our own networks, who we go to on a day-to-day. And so when you think about the 6 people who are on there right now, they're all very different and they all serve very different purposes. What I love about our whole advisory team is they are passionate and they're unapologetic about what they believe in and what they speak about. We created a bursary and a mentorship program.
I was going to ask you about the bursary.
Yeah, so we created a bursary and mentorship program to help students who are in, whether if it's culinary or beverage or even content creation, to really help them hone in on their skills and give them experiences and exposure and visibility into things that they might have not typically had in the years that they're going through school. So from high school to post education, in hopes that this longer mentorship program, which would be tied to our talent, that when they come out and really look for a job, that they have more equitable opportunity, because it's not like that right now, unfortunately.
How did you come up with Quell to begin with? The name Quell.
We talked a lot about knocking on the door, because we're not at the table, right? So we start to get very visual, like in terms of, we just need a seat at the table. We're not talking about eliminating a seat so that we can be at the table. We're saying add a seat so that we can be there. And so when we first thought about what that meant, it was around, and even visually, the whole logo was supposed to be about this, was we knock on the door so that we can put our foot in, but the idea is then we knock the door down, right? Because we just want to get our foot in the door. And that's where the little square comes in, right? It's a big square and a bigger square. And that's the idea of that's kind of like a little square just slightly in.
That's actually really cool. That's deep.
Yeah, so I know. So that's the marketing side, I think. So we don't talk about that. So thank you for asking it. But it's the whole idea of, we're here to knock down the door if you can just hold the door for us. I think our role really right now is to concentrate on why we started this, and be true to our roster of talent, and do as much as possible to support them, at least in the next 6 months, until hopefully we can hire someone to help. That's the thing, right? Entrepreneurs, you do everything. You literally do everything.
And someone said to me that, and it sticks with me, that no 2 days are alike.
No.
So if you're really hoping for that structure, expecting structure, well, you've got another thing coming to you. So it's about, and there's also a lot of people too who do have 9-to-5 jobs in addition to
hustle.
Right, that's the hustle, even part-time jobs. But regardless, I mean, if you're, it's like I wonder how much of a struggle it is for some people to be able to recognize or actualize their dreams of entrepreneurship, and at the same time hold down a job, because you got to keep paying the bills in the meantime.
So I had my side hustle marketing business, we'll say design, probably for a good almost 10 years, just on the side, when I was at the LCBO and I went to Deloitte in the greenhouse. And so I had my side hustle, and it was hard, right? I had 2 kids during that time. But coming out to make the decision to not have a stable biweekly paycheck is the hardest decision, one of the hardest decisions I've had to make. Those are decisions that if you have a partner and a family, you need to decide together. That's a decision that you need to understand, that you can't always live the same type of life you were when you're, at your other stable job. So, but it's also a risk that you need to take, right? One thing I kept on telling myself is, and I don't know why I put so much pressure, but I was like, I have my own business before I'm 40. I want to have, and even when this happened last year, I was like, I'm not 40 yet. I shouldn't do it. And I was like, what am I talking about? Like, I'm ready. Like, let's do it. Right.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people around me, like family and friends, were just like, why not? You're ready to do it.
Yeah. You were ready. You were ready since you were 15.
Thank you. It's very true. It has been a long journey, and I think there's so much more to it. And I'm really, and to be honest, I haven't really sat down and written what my next 10, 15, 20 years is going to be like. And I think knowing that my last 20 years or 15 years I've written down, I think I need to put it out to the universe and do that.
Yeah. Right there, you just taking steps to see what's out there, just to see what's out there, take a peek. I think to me that's success in itself.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think that enough of us give ourselves credit for that. Okay. So even if something didn't work out, and this has been an ongoing theme too in my series, is even if something didn't work out, well, okay, maybe there was reasons why it didn't work out, but there is a solution to everything. If one thing didn't work out, then maybe you tweak it along the way.
Yeah.
And try again.
Whatever you do, try your best to do it with purpose and with intent. Really understand why you're doing something. If you're really, going to start a business, what are you doing it for yourself, for fulfillment? Is it towards a path for something? And so, I do a lot of workshops where I help other people, where when you think about your first 20 years in your career, it's really to build your credibility. It's really to build your experience and expertise. You come to a point in your life, you decide that some people do a change of career at this time. Some people just continue and go all the way to the top. And some people will go and leave and just do their own thing, right? And so the people mostly that I talk to want to be entrepreneurs. And at that point, that is when I start doing a visioning exercise with them. And I think, your next 15, 20 years when you retire, how are you going to look back and ensure that you've done everything that you were at least hoping for to get you to
Mm-hmm.
this point, so that you are leaving a legacy, or you are leaving this earth to your children, whatever it is, that it's meant something to you and you fulfilled what you've wanted to fulfill. Because the worst thing is if you're 65 and retiring and you're like, oh, that's what I did. So my advice is just think through that, knowing that, again, it is organic and it is fluid, but you should have an idea of where you want to go and what kind of legacy that you want to bring. And
Yeah.
entrepreneurship it's a big part of that.
Yeah.
Don't just, I'm not about just doing something so that I can make money. Like I firmly do not believe that,
Me
even
too.
though, right? I firmly believe that yes, you can do, yes, obviously it's important because you need to put the food on the table and dress your kids, whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's got to be fulfilling, it's got to be with purpose, and you got to have a reason to do it.